It's the Cheff Njathi Podcast!
Broadcasting from a tiny little studio in a tiny little town in a tiny little state in the Midwest, flying through space on a tiny little planet going 67,000 miles per hour. You're listening to the Just Josh and You podcast. And today we have Don Thornton back with us in studio. Philosopher, philanthropist, millionaire, playboy. Does everything he wants. Don, good to have you back with me, my friend.
Who's that guy you were talking about just a second ago?
That's you, buddy.
Oh, right.
That's the way I perceive you. And see, you can't change that. Perception is just like an identity. If you get to choose how you identify, I get to choose how I perceive you.
I perceive myself as a brilliant millionaire playboy.
To me, you walk on water. I don't give a shit what you think about yourself.
You know what? I'm going to pretend that I have amnesia and that I really am that guy, and I just don't remember.
That's fine. No, but we really don't know how we look through other people's eyes. Isn't that interesting?
There's also the aspect of caring. Do we care? Sometimes you care a lot. A lot of people, that's how they manage their whole life is, man, what if I don't look good in someone else's eyes? But a long time ago, I developed whatever thick skin, and it's tough for me to care what other people think.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter really to a certain extent. I mean, like you said, the people that you care about and care about you the most, obviously
I do care about that.
Yeah, you pay attention,
Yeah.
but beyond that reach,
Right.
It's like whatever.
Right.
But I don't think most people, I would say, and I could be completely wrong, but I don't think most people ever get to that comfort level. Because when you look at social media, it's all about making it look like you're just having the best time in the world.
But how much of it's a bigger and bigger chunk of the population, isn't it? I was going to say, how much of the population is that? Maybe keep thinking there's a rational portion of the population that came from where I came from, small town. Actually had to come up with games. There wasn't infinite video game and social media options that we have now, but this younger generation, and then that's bleeding over to my generation, 53 years old, even 70 years old, you've got the kids leading their grandparents along by the neck.
Yeah.
Oh, I need this Xbox. I need, we got to have Wi-Fi. Blah, blah, blah. It's like having cats. They just boss you around and you end up serving them.
So the reason why I wanted to have you on is you wrote an essay.
I did.
And I kind of wanted it to go over that with you. So for those of you listening, if this is going to kind of be like a story time podcast. So if that's something that doesn't interest you, it won't hurt my feelings because I won't know. Just, turn it off and move on to the next one. But if you are interested, can you, just before I read it, can you give a prologue?
You know what? It kind of explains itself.
I know, but that's not the point. It will, but can you give a teaser, or at least what it has to do with?
Sure. So I met Cheff Njathi Kabui about 2 years ago, and he's a Kenyan from Africa, which is where Kenya is, strangely enough. And he's been living in the United States for about 34 years or something like that. He's got a couple of kids out here, and he introduced me to, he's got some courses that he teaches, and he's got a cuisine he's put together. So he, through the first class I had with him, he introduced me to his cuisine and different things, and it really impacted my life. And so a couple months after I met him, I wrote this article. So that was almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
So if you're okay with that, I would love for you just to read through it.
I know, but that was great. But what is the article? What does it fundamentally have to do with? What's the principle that it's talking about?
Well, if I tell you, then it'll spoil it.
Spoil it. Okay, you just want to do it. That's fine. All right, cool. We'll do it the way you want to do it. It's the Don Thornton Show.
Yes, I finally get my way.
I've always wanted it my way. Okay, you're gonna have to help me with some of these names, dude.
No problem.
Because a teeny D la booty.
What?
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying.
You're making stuff up. Now.
As a teeny D la booty,
Etienne de la Botier. That's French. Okay, that's on the French language.
Okay, well, I don't speak French. I don't speak freaky deaky Dutch, you Dutch bastard.
Okay, but that's not how it starts out, right?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I was just going through it and saw that name, and I was like, ooh, that's going to be a
French name. Okay, I'm with you.
So, okay, here we go. We who live today have inherited a war. It is a war in which our ancestors lost. It is a war that every few people even know is being fought. It is the war of our freedom. It is the war of our human independence. This war was won by the pirates among our ancestors long ago, but there's always hope. As
Etienne de la Botier
said so beautifully in his discourse on voluntary servitude over 500 years ago, and I quote, "There are always a few better endowed than others who feel the weight of the yoke and cannot restrain themselves from attempting to shake it off, even if liberty it had entirely perished from the earth. Such men would invent it." End quote. As parents, most of us familiar with the eternal complaint from their children. Why? Why do I have to do chores? Why do I have to read? Why do I have to study? Why do I have to learn these construction techniques? Why do I have to help on the farm? The answer is a simple one, but one that most parents never know or want to share because they had become victims of this war. I will articulate it here before proceeding. The answer to these whys, the answer lost to our minds today, yet clear in the minds of the warriors of the past and the minds of those few who still fight today for freedom and liberty, is this: you must do these things, my child, because we are at war. And if you want to make it through this war and remain human, you have to live the life of a warrior. For the wise, that will inevitably follow such an answer. Here is some of the rest of the adult education a warrior parent could share with their child. We live in a world where our entire society is designed to tell you that you are a slave, that your property is only yours by permission, not by right. You'll be told to strive for adulthood and then discover that is a scam. Sorry. That true adulthood is too dangerous to be permitted. The only adulthood you'll experience is a watered down version that will be licensed to you by your masters and can easily be taken away. Your slavery will be sold under the flag of freedom and liberty, but nonetheless, you were born into slavery and you'll remain a slave. I love that. And you probably, you don't want to stop and talk as I go through it, or do you want to wait till the end?
If you can, let's. I want to get your knee jerk. Once we're all done, I want to get your knee jerk of the whole thing.
Okay.
And then we can go back to specific parts if we can remember.
I just want to since we have stopped,
Yeah,
I just want to tell you that I 1000% believe that you're right. We're a slave in almost every single possible way you can be a slave, even when it comes to religion. And I guess we can get into that later, but I'm continuing now. I want to be free, and I refuse.
Oh, sorry. Go up one.
Is it you'll be given one? Yeah. Okay. You'll be given one or two choices to either be a slave or to be a master. I want to be free, and I refuse to be either one. I am determined to give you that same third choice. I want you to be free, and that means I have a duty as your parent to help you become a warrior. You also must do these things because freedom and liberty are not prizes to be won, but are merely the successful escape from different types of a prison. Should you win your freedom and liberty, the real work begins at your skills as a warrior. I totally screwed that up. See, Don, I told you I didn't want to do this.
You're doing good.
Let's see, where was I? The real work begins in the eternal fight against. Did I not?
No, you're good. Should you win your freedom and liberty, the real work begins. And your skills as a warrior will then be put to their proper use.
You'll fight for creativity, productivity, efficiency, knowledge, understanding, empathy, wisdom, and joy. These things aren't free gifts from the universe. If we want to live as humans, we have to fight. We have to fight other people in order to avoid the pirates among us. And we have to fight against nature in order to build the life we love and to make the world a better place for me and for you. That's why you must read, work, learn, practice, fail, iterate, and succeed. I want you to be a healthy human being. The alternative is the norm we see all around us. Confused slaves looking for better and better victim stories, hoping the universe will somehow help them endure life until the blessed release of the grave grants them their reward in heaven. I want to live. I want to teach you to love your life. That means we're warriors, not slaves or masters. The answer could go on for quite a while, and understanding will probably take a long time, but if we want our children to be human, it's the only way. Parents today don't share these things with their children because the pirate among our ancient ancestors achieved major victory. Out of the need to survive as pirates, they became humanity's intellectuals, the institutions we all use and depend on every day, were either designed or heavily influenced by them. Today's parents are the children of many generations of victims. They are conquered warriors who have lost their true identity. The identity of a warrior had become very dangerous, so they replaced it with something that felt safer. The world over, they have accepted the identity of a slave or of an eternal child. Instead of arming our children with the very simple knowledge of the fact that they are participants in an ongoing struggle, we instead add to their burden by perpetuating the moral fog in which we live. Slavery never went away. It is too profitable. It is simply and smoothly transformed into something much less obvious and far more profitable. The incremental slavery of democracy. This war has produced an endless stream of victims and consequences. One such consequence I'll describe here as
Muthoni's dilemma.
Muthoni's dilemma is a very smart and beautiful young woman, age 13, who found herself caught up in a game and a project that was instigated by her father and his friend. Muthoni's father is a very radical chef with ideas he hopes to spread to as many people as he can. His ideas are controversial, and he holds them very passionately. The passion has spilled over into his parenting. Thus, Muthoni has a burden and privilege of being raised by a slightly fanatic, a slightly fanatic yet loving father. I like fantastic better. You should change
Slightly
that. Slightly fantastic. He's like the Diet Coke of fantastic. 1 calorie, not fantastic enough. Oh, you knew what I was when you picked me up. Okay. The game I'm referring to is a health game. Muthoni's father... Did I screw that up again? Muthoni. Man, dude. Muthoni, if you're listening to this, I sincerely apologize. I'm trying my very best. Muthoni's father has, through long my gosh, Josh. Experimentation and thought, developed his own gourmet cuisine as well as a weight loss program designed to help people reach their ideal body weight. Oh, Jesus.
Muthoni.
Muthoni and her brother, age 11, thank God we didn't have to mention his name. We often, on the receiving end of these food experiments, as a result, they have eaten nothing but the best quality of food their father could find. She will have to be the judge as to the flavor and the personal appeal of her father's cuisine, but without exception, the nutritional quality of the food she has grown up eating has been top tier. Muthoni is, did I say it wrong?
You did good.
Okay, Muthoni is attempting public school in the United States. Attending, my bad. I feel bad for that.
You attended school. I attempted it, and I failed. We had different experiences.
Yeah, we did. All right. So, is attending public school in the United States. She has friends and acquaintances from her school, and from time to time, the subject of health and weight is brought into their daily conversation. One major aspect of U.S. schools, an aspect deliberately designed as a key part of the structure by John Dewey himself, who's an idiot, inventor of the Dewey Decimal System, maybe he's not, is the system of peer pressure, much like the pecking order in a chicken coop. School kids naturally sort themselves into tribes. This peer pressure nearly always surpasses the power of its institutional predecessor, family pressure. An emergent property of U.S. government education is the fact that nothing is more central to young women of Muthoni's age than self-image. Body weight is a very significant factor of these calculations. When her chef father and his friend over speakerphone, over speakerphone began discussing their different weights, both their current and recent measurements. Muthoni was caught up in the dialogue. Soon the scale was brought out and everyone was weighing themselves. Her father's friend had been 254 pounds a little over 3 weeks ago and had lost a good 25 pounds with the combination of fasting and breaking his fast with her father's cuisine. He now stood just under 230 pounds. Her father weighed in at just over 150 pounds. Muthoni and her brother got in the game, reporting 109 pounds and 70 pounds, respectively. Now, Muthoni was caught. Her self-image had her standing somewhere around 100 pounds. This was sort of like a grade, regarded by herself and her school friends as a significant part of their self-images and their view of each other. Muthoni was caught by surprise, seeing the scale sit at 109, and her immediate response was, "I need to lose some weight." My left pinky weighs 109 pounds, so thanks. I didn't know what obesity was until I read this. I'm writing this article to connect a few things that may benefit from the close examination. What is going on in Muthoni's mind? What do we know? What is her environment? What can we deduce? The pecking order of government education, perhaps all over the world, but specifically in the good old USA, is a fierce thing to experience. The peer pressure of government schools is a culture in of itself. It overwrites much of the other culture influences a child or young adult may experience. Family culture, national culture, religious culture, and many other influences crash like waves upon the rock of peer pressure. Muthoni's response to the scale had strong implications to her. She saw it in light of the friends she associated with at school. The opinion of her parents and her brother pale in significance when compared to the impact of the opinions of her school friends will have. Should that number get out, what would they think? Out of self-defense, she knew she must lose a few pounds to regain her ideal, the ideal constructed by her self-image. But Muthoni was missing a key factor. Her father had identified a major problem in human society. As a side effect, she'd become immune to the physical effects of this problem. She was not, however, immune to the physiological effects of the scale provided. Muthoni's chef father had discovered a problem so vast it actually qualifies as one of humanity's grand challenges. He named it the food system. Muthoni's father grew up in Kenya and had experienced village life eating the indigenous food and speaking the
Kikuyu
language of the culture there. Never using refrigeration or the canning process, his food experience was based on living food supply chain. Traveling to the U.S. as a young college student, he experienced the food system of Western civilization. He tasted the refrigerated milk, the canned and frozen foods, and the fast foods that were the product of our present-day centralized global food supply chain. He was not impressed. He didn't like McDonald's? That shocks me.
His first meal was, let's see, just as he got in, the people picked him up to take him to the school. They stopped by 7-Eleven, got him a hot dog and a soda.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, that must have
He
just...
dumped the soda out on the sidewalk.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I can't drink this. What are you talking about?
That's like picking up a missionary and going to a bar.
Yeah.
Strip
club.
Yeah, a strip club. Oh, yes, even better. Not only did the food disagree with him, but over the course of a few short months, he began to feel the ill effects on his body. Shortly thereafter, he searched out and found the local food growers and began eating as close as he could manage to the indigenous diet which had served him so well in his childhood. His experience was so profound that it shaped his college education and his purpose. He has worked for the past 3 decades to learn the depths to which the global food supply chain's nutritional value has dropped. He learned that the quality had dropped to such a level that not only was the nutritional value pathetic when compared to the organic indigenous foods he grew up with, but it was, in many cases, actually toxic. He linked this poor and dangerous state of the global food system to the global health crisis being experienced in every nation that has adopted it. Because of these findings, he was determined to find the highest quality and the least contaminated food available here in the United States. This is exclusively what he has been eating for the last 30 years, and that is the food that Muthoni and her brother have eaten as well. Her father has done his best to prevent her and her brother from even tasting what he now calls fiat food, determined to keep their palate and microbiomes hungering for the virtuous and disdaining the vicious. The epic food fight, instigated by her father and taken up passively and actively by nearly everyone Muthoni has met, is a constant battle. Muthoni, unlike her father, is a stranger in a strange land, not because of any cultural misalignment, but simply because food is such a powerful connective tissue of society. Her food is so different from that of her friends, their families, and nearly everyone she knows. Jeez, Josh.
Incompatibility.
I know that word. Contributes to the dilemma she faces every day to get along with her dad or fit in. Both choices have dire consequences. In some ways, especially as a young woman making her way through the chaos of the U.S. government education system, it must seem like a no-win scenario. But Muthoni has yet to discover is the depth of her good fortune. For all of her friends at school, weight is going to be a constant battle. Mental health, physical health, and body weight are severely impacted by the quality of one's food. The fear that almost oozes from the pores of their friends is well-founded, and our U.S. culture is flooded with that fear. Should I eat that donut? Yes. Should I take one more helping of spaghetti or one more slice of garlic bread? How much am I going to have to pay for the choices my appetite forces upon me? For those of us stuck in and addicted to the fiat food system, food is always a win-lose scenario. What makes our taste buds happy destroys us, and our medical system is severely overloaded with the consequences. Compounding the problem is the fact that our medical system has evolved not only to cope with the ever-increasing load, but to defend the fiat food system that is its cause. We never hear doctors talking seriously about the patient's weight. We don't see scales at Walmart, but heart and blood pressure monitors. There is no profit in people responsibly managing their weight, but there are billions to be made in managing the symptoms of the overweight. Here in the United States, we believe to our core that obesity is a natural part of getting older, and our medicine is designed to manage our ever-expanding weight. It is forced to cooperate with or to go to war with our food system and the global food system. As Muthoni's father learned, is far too profitable and well established to make such a fight seem wise. Besides, there never was a better win-win scenario than financial alliance between the food system and the medical system. One sets up the body to fail, and the other specializes in profiting from the sick care of failing bodies. As a young adult, Muthoni is not only profiting from the excellent health of the young, but from the excellent quality of her food. The fear that plague her peers and that she sees in the media all around her are not applicable to her. Her weight is not only healthy, but the threat of fatty liver disease, obesity, and heart disease we see in more and more young people is something she will completely dodge if she continues in her diet as she has begun. Her father has learned that fiat food spreads so much of the physical disease and disorder we see, and that this sickness has a strong and pervasive mental aspect to it, which spreads just as easy. So basically garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yes.
Muthoni, because of her diet, is immune to the physical disease caused by her fiat food, since she does not partake of it. But the psychology of fiat culture is much more difficult to dodge. In writing this, I've had to assume much about Muthoni's life and thought process. I beg her forgiveness, as do I, for screwing up her name multiple times.
You got it now.
I could be completely wrong. Of course, I am the friend of her father I mentioned above, and I've just begun what is turning into a lifelong journey of abstaining from fiat food. I'm learning to support my health with gourmet food from her father's cuisine. I can only imagine that it must be what it must be like for her and her brother to be raised by a chef who is so driven by this vision, by his vision. But that vision is contagious. It only takes a brief look to see the truth about our food system. Her father is trying to be the best warrior and parent and to raise warriors instead of slaves or masters. Totally got away with that. Muthoni's dilemma, as I see it, is that she must choose whether or not to continue to eat the food of her childhood. Should she value it along with the flavors of the health benefits, she will continue to be an outsider. Food is so integral to human interactions that it will take a strong character to make such a fundamental social choice. On the other hand, she could choose to lessen the mental pressure and to avoid all the arguments, explanations, and inconveniences imposed by the nearly unique dietary requirements. She could become all-American and enjoy the party that fiat food offers. I was so fascinated to hear her response to the scale. I have adult friends who now weigh more than I do, and who aspire to reach an ideal body weight of 150 pounds or so. The funny thing the funny thing from my perspective about Muthoni's situation is that she has absolutely nothing to worry about physically. The problem I see she must face is all psychological, and I hope she has the strength of mind and character to see what unique opportunity she has with a chef as a father. And not just any chef, but the chef, Master Kabui. I know of no one else who is doing the work he is doing, and I think his cuisine and philosophy is going to take the world by storm. Muthoni's school friends, as long as they stay plugged into the fiat food system, will always be battling with the monster consequences of fiat food. But that monster will never set eyes upon her if she continues as she's begun. It's such a unique problem that I wanted to write about it. It must be something like growing up in a liquor store surrounded by drinkers and alcoholics, but refusing to ever drink. Mormonism. She must see the delicious flavor combinations and the very powerful advertisements and continue to live as they didn't matter. That would require a strong character indeed. Or maybe it's like a religious convert living among heathens, or an atheist surrounded by religious fanatics. What a thing to ask of your child. What a thing for Muthoni to ask of herself. But what is your health worth? To a young person, health is quite often a free gift. As a man in my early 50s, my gift of health is well worn and falling apart. If I could buy a new one, I would. But maybe, just maybe in a way, I can. If, as Cheff Kabui says, our food system in Western culture is not designed so much more for our health as it is for mass production appeal and over-increasing sales, the best way to recapture the lost health of my youth may be through my food choices and a deliberate decision to return to my ideal body weight. I've been a fan of life extension technology since I first learned about the subject. Stem cell research, Elon Musk's Neuralink, miracle pills to manage the
telomeres.
Thank you, of our chromosomes. And it all sounds fascinating. It makes me wonder if I'll live long enough to see medical research solve aging itself and allow me to live a healthy life for several hundred more years. But realistically, I probably won't. It's a good attitude to have. However, since meeting Cheff Kabui, I've realized that he may well be right in his belief that our global medical crisis is almost exclusively a function of our failing food system. If he's right, then the best shot I have at life extension is to lose another 60 pounds and to eat as uncontaminated and as nutritionally sound as food that I can find. We are at war for our freedom. Cheff talks about food justice, food literacy, and the terrible powers of the fiat food system. This is just one aspect of the fight for our freedom and liberty. Cheff believes that at present, one of the best moves for any major warrior is to fight for the quality of our food. It isn't toppling any government or changing any presidencies, but it just might change our world for the better and free us from the horrible trap of fiat food. I wish Muthoni and her brother the best in their fight. They have a unique position to either defend or abandon, depending on what their strength allows. I'm rocked every day as an addict to fiat food, trying to recover my health and learn a new way to eat. They are looking at this battle from the other side, having the experience of many years of good eating and now having to exercise the willpower of maintaining such a solid stance in the face of a world of food junkies. I honestly don't know which is the tougher fight, but I'm happy to do my part. This message has been approved by the Don Thornton Foundation. Very well done, my friend.
Thanks for chugging through that. That was a lot.
No, that's there were some pretty big words in there that I'm going to have to look up later. But No, what it couldn't be any truer. And the more and more we do open our eyes, especially scientifically, and see what we're ingesting, how bad sugar is, how it's metabolized, how it's not metabolized, to save money, the substitute sweeteners that they've implemented, such as high fructose corn syrup, aspartame,
what's funny?
stevia.
If you do a Google search on aspartame, whether or not it's good for you, if you just put in something like, is aspartame okay? Is it healthy? You'll get all sorts of articles that say, oh yeah, it's fine. It's just fine. It's no problem. But then if you put in a specific, Cheff had me put in a specific individual, aspartame and this guy, and it brings up all these court cases and all this scientific data where they show how aspartame totally wrecks your body. And that's not available on a regular Google search anymore.
Well, our generation found out the propaganda bullshit machine a long time ago when we had the food groups, the food group pyramid. Do you remember that in school?
Mm-hmm.
And what they were shoving down our throats, milk being one of those things, because
does the body good.
U.S. has invested so much money in dairy. And
what is it? Oh, the lobbyists. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got whoever has the most lobbyists with the most money, their diet is going to get promoted.
I think that the only way our society and civilization will ever flourish, independent of monopolies and self-interest, will be a society ran by scientific intelligence, or possibly AI, to definitively say you're fucking this up. This isn't the right way to go about it. And if you abolished all of the perks that come with holding power and high financial situation, it really at that point comes down to, well, what is good and what isn't good.
See, I hate the Marvel universe because Captain Marvel, they showed this possible future of the evil AI overlord. I mean, come on, does it have to turn out that way? Does the AI overlord for the super advanced alien species have to be a dominating tyrant? I don't know.
Well, it's all we know.
We don't know. That was total fantasy.
Well, but we do have dominating tyrants.
Well, that's true. That is all we know.
So, though the application was completely illogical and out of this world,
that we would.
The root of look at it as a biblical story. No, she didn't fly around and look that hot. But the point of the matter is, we're all under somebody's thumb.
Dude, I wouldn't have gotten out of religion if Captain Marvel was part of.
Oh, there isn't a chance, dude.
I'd have been in.
1,000%.
If there's a chance I could get glowy bolts of energy shooting out of my hands.
Yep.
Man, I'd be down
flying around in an Iron Man suit.
Yep.
Take this, Taliban.
Oh, that's so badass. Where he has his first Iron Man suit and he shows up targeting.
But on a serious note, does he understand what he's going up against?
Iron Man?
No.
Cheff. Yeah, he does. Unfortunately, it's a sad story, and I've compared him to a guy that's hanging from a cliff, and he's just hanging on to a few weeds, and the roots are pulling out. And I came by about the time that those roots were about to fail. I'm like, hey, you want a hand? I've got a rope up here. I could throw you some rope, but I do not think you would accept my help since I'm only waiting around to kill you. No, I didn't say that part, but I helped him up by listening. He's been. See, the thing is, you should watch this little interview he did with a TV. I think it was Charlotte, North Carolina, TV program out there, or a TV. What do they call it? What's a news
station?
News station. Yeah, out in Charlotte, North Carolina. They interviewed him, and he had a recipe. Put together everything right there while you were watching, and he threw out his food philosophy at the same time. So that was 5 years ago. He's got stuff from 20 years ago. He's been spouting this message for a long time. So he went from that 7-Eleven experience, and he decided, okay, I need to become a medical anthropologist. So he got a master's degree in medical anthropology and in urban anthropology. He wanted to know, what's the deal with people? How do we think? And how has medicine changed over the years? And then he got more and more into food, and he's like, shit, I'm gonna have to become a chef. So he went to a chef school and became a chef, just so that people would listen to him, because he was talking about food and nobody gave a shit because he wasn't a chef.
Which is so funny, because truth is truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's funny how, but that's the pre-programming that we have to deal with. And I hate to always pick on religion, but that's at the forefront of the misguided theology that we start out with, that and Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and everything else. And so by the time you come out of that meat grinder, it's really hard to have the intellect to focus on what's really important and what's beneficial, because our whole lives we're told what to think, what to feel, how we're going to think, how we're going to feel. And it's a beta blocker to the foundation that we should be laying to help us think more intellectually and the benefits of those things. It's crazy. We've put so much faith in the machine that we don't think for ourselves anymore. And that's a high.
Yeah, and the machine is wrecking us. Like, you look at the global supply chain for our food system. Let's say Costco. Where do you like to shop? You go to Costco, you go to Walmart, you go to, I don't know, maybe Target or Dan's. Albertsons is probably a thing of the past. But wherever you go for your food, 99.9% probably of all of these supply chains are based on food that is severely contaminated. Because what they found, this was one of the first things Cheff teaches in his classes, is that Agent Orange, so United States is over in the Vietnam War, and these little bastards are hiding in the jungle. Well, how do you find them? Well, you melt the jungle. So they came up with Agent Orange. They spray Agent Orange over the jungle, and it withers it. It dries up. I think the plants can no longer absorb water. So basically, they're in a desert as far as they know, and the plants just die. So then, after Vietnam War was done, they had all this extra Agent Orange, and they had the process of how to make it. They had the scientists, they had the production facilities. They're like, shit, what can we do with this stuff? They're like, well, if it'll melt the jungle in Vietnam, maybe it'll melt weeds. But how do we keep it from melting the food crops that we want? Oh, you know what? If we genetically modify them, then we'll make them immune to this Agent Orange stuff. And we have to change the Agent Orange stuff a little bit. So they modified that just a little bit, but chemically they're very similar to Roundup. Roundup is what we now spray on our food, but it's modified Agent Orange. That is what we're spraying on our food, because it means you don't have to weed. Everything that isn't genetically modified to handle this shit is gone. So, so it makes growing food like crazy more productive. However, you have the persistent chemical up in that Roundup, glyphosate. It comes right through, and it comes into our bodies. And again, it's like aspartame. You look up on Google, is glyphosate harmful? Is Roundup okay to spray on our food? Oh yeah, it's fine. But there's thousands of lawsuits that people have filed and fought against Monsanto, which has been bought by Bayer. So basically, what Cheff is teaching us is that any supply chain you're going to go to here in the United States, unless it's a natural foods place or an organic store specifically, like Whole Foods or Good Earth or something like that, natural grocers, it's going to have that glyphosate stuff and other stuff in it. So they're using chemical fertilizers, chemical pesticides, and chemical herbicides. And all that gets into the food, and it stays. In fact, to finish off. I didn't realize this, but when you're harvesting hay, one of the trickiest parts is after you cut the hay, you got to let it dry. But then you're kind of at the mercy of the weather. If it rains after you cut your hay and that gets wet, it can ruin your crop. So what they'll do is they'll spray that Roundup on the cut hay, and it'll dry it much quicker. So the cows get it. So you're like, well, I just eat beef and whatever. Well, what are your pigs eating? What are your chickens eating? What are your cows eating? And then now we're eating the milk. We're drinking the milk. We're eating the cows. We're eating the pigs. We're eating the chickens. We're eating the eggs. But down at the base of the food chain is what those animals are eating. And then what are those crops eating? They're eating chemical fertilizers, not organic fertilizers.
But I don't understand. Why are we all getting cancer?
We are.
Why are we all obese? You know what I mean? It's funny. It's not funny. And I say this. I've said this a couple of times. We've had you on the program. We got to get Cheff in here
for sure. Yeah, he's amazing. So I'm a very casual student of his. He's taught me a few classes and he's helped me with some recipes that I've tried to put together. But dude, we're all food junkies. It is so hard. Like you wanted to go to Mexican food last night, and I've been on a quest to find the world's best tamale, because I had neighbors from Texas, and Raquel Vera, she made the most amazing tamale. I didn't realize that the secret to it is you put a bunch of lard in is it masa, or anyway, whatever the cornmeal is that they make the shell out of. So that lard is a big, it's got to be real pig lard. Anyway, so that was one of the missing elements. I've tasted lots of different tamales, and a lot of them just taste like crap. But that Mexican restaurant that you guys got food from, they have a really good tamale.
That I've talked to their chef a couple of times, and he grew up in a situation much like Cheff. Not in the health factor of it, but the authenticity, geez, of the way that he,
you can tell that
he makes it. No, it's one of the it's interesting because I've been to a ton of Mexican restaurants, as I'm sure you have as well, and you come out here to the Midwest, in the middle of nowhere, and you wouldn't think that you would find a quality.
That was a surprise.
But no, it's actually really good. And he does put love.
What's the name of that restaurant so we can give him a plug?
I have no idea.
Okay, it's west of here.
You know what?
So go to a small town.
Mexican restaurant in Wakefield.
La Isla Mexican Cuisine and Cantina. Here you are.
La Isla Mexican Cuisine and Cantina.
Spell it.
Playing all the Mexican cuisine and cantina on
See what
YouTube.
you've done? She keeps going. No, stop. Stop, Google. Don't do it anymore. We appreciate you. Okay. Your services are appreciated.
They are an excellent Mexican restaurant.
Look, if you're in the Wakefield area, which is about 35 minutes north of the 70 from Junction City, you gotta check it out. It is really, really, really good food, and they do put a lot of love into it. But that being said, just like any other restaurant, you can only get the food from certain.
Your supply chain is all drawing from the same stuff. All the wheat,
1,000%,
all the flour, all the corn, all the oil. It's all grown with that Roundup stuff.
Well, but like anything else, they've made it impossible almost.
Yeah.
And it's way too expensive. I was thinking about that the other day because I do think about it all the time, and I'm like, man, if you really wanted fresh ingredients and you had to grow all of the ingredients, for instance, if I wanted to grow all of the ingredients just to make the dough, man, that's cost prohibitive. I mean,
it is. Now, one thing that Cheff has figured out, being a cheap Kenyan, so I mean, this guy, I've never seen anybody stretch $1 more than he does. He will hire people, and this is just normal for a lot of other countries outside of the United States and Europe and first world countries, they are used to making like, $2 to $7 a day. So he'll take the money that you'd spend on coffee and he'll hire a guy for a day to dig a pond over in Kenya. So he's had to be very frugal with his money. So he's building some sustainable farms in Kenya while he's living in North Carolina, fathering his children, parenting his children. So he's got a lot of plates spinning, but he's never gotten a job that was outside of his quest for food perfection and fixing the food system. So all he's done for income is a few residencies here and there, talking at colleges. He's traveled different parts of the country. He's been to Iceland. I went to Iceland. That was the first time I met him. He's been to the Virgin Islands. He's got an invitation to go down to Brazil. He has traveled a lot of different places, but money hasn't been a huge factor in his life. Because he's been so focused on this. He's like, this is all I want to do. If I go get a job, then I lose this focus. And so every moment of his day is focused on the global food system. So he's very much a fanatic as far as that goes. But what it's allowed him to do is, even when you've got the expensive organic ingredients, either he switches, so he won't typically eat corn. So I don't know that corn is... Anyway, there's a few things like peanuts. George Washington Carver, I remember growing up and reading about him, black guy that he found out all sorts of things you can do with peanuts. And like 150 different products you can do with peanuts. And so he basically built the foundation of the peanut supply chain for the United States and other parts of the world. So we're eating a hell of a lot more peanuts than is good for us. Like, peanuts are not a great food for the human body.
No, it turns out peanuts are actually really bad for you.
Yeah. And there's other things, cashews, a lot of corn, not so great for us. There's nightshades that we eat like candy, bell peppers, cucumbers, different things like that are delicious, but we have them not because they're nutritious, but because the supply chain got developed around it.
So wait a minute. What's wrong with a cucumber?
Nightshade.
Really?
Yeah. I guess. Now, again, I said I'm a very casual, bad student, so I haven't done the research, but Cheff has just pointed out a few of these things that... So I haven't looked into the details of what he's told me. I've just taken it on faith because this is his passion. And so he says... So his thesis is that our modern day food system isn't based on nutrition, and whether he's right about cucumbers, I don't know. I'm just taking his word for it. I think he said cucumbers and peppers. I mean, a lot of things, tomatoes, not the best thing for us. But you have the Italians with their spaghetti and their pizzas. How are you going to resist it? And the supply chain gets built. So his thesis is that the food we have available to us now isn't so much a function of nutrition. It was a technological error that we made. Remember the 3 laws of technology from Joe Rogan's podcast that you had me listen to? Those were so good. So if your technology gives power, which ease of eating, more abundant food, these are great powers, then it's going to create a race, a supply chain race. And if you don't, apply the other 2 rules were kind of dumb, I thought, but or laws.
That was the best one.
That was the best one. No, but they ended it. They said if you don't use wisdom, if you don't understand the nature of that race, then it will end in disaster. So that technological error, we're looking at our whole food supply chain now is based not on nutrition, but it's based on convenience, availability, popularity, flavor, price. A lot of things are more important than nutrition.
Well, and the things that are inside that make us addicted to it. Because sugar is that does not mess around.
Nope.
Nor does high fructose corn syrup, which is in pretty much everything that is
They put it in ketchup.
sweet. They put
What's
it
up
in
with that?
everything. It's in everything. And I read a book, and I can't remember what the hell it's called now.
Well, and the
But
problem
it was
is,
all about sugar.
yeah, and then you've got the FDA. They're like, well, we're just going to tell you what's in stuff, and we'll leave it up to you. We're going to manage your health because that's what we are.
No, the FDA, for anyone listening, is a pay-to-play program.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the hell
it's a
you're
scam.
putting out. As long as you
Big, huge
buy
scam.
in and
Right.
you pay for it,
Right.
they'll endorse anything.
Yep.
As long as you're part of the group.
But the average American doesn't want to hear that. They want to know that
No.
someone's got their back, that
Right.
the government's got their back. But yeah,
Don't look up.
Don't look up. Yep, exactly. So it's interesting. It's scary because now you got it. So we want to see food as a solved problem. Like I remember growing up thinking, oh, it's so nice I don't have to be a farmer. In fact, I would rebel against my parents when they asked me to go out and weed the garden because I never ate any of that food because we had boxes of Cheerios. What the hell did I need a vegetable for if I had a box of Cheerios?
Right.
So when they'd have me go weed the garden, it was just torture. You start to get allergies from the weeds and sweating like crazy. I didn't care about those vegetables. Now it's different. But
Well, and I know that, this is more of a question for Cheff, but I'm sure you have the answer as well. It's one thing to be able to point out the problem. What is the solution?
Oh, sorry, I was going to tell you. So because he's such a financially frugal guy, he's been able to.
Don, I told you,
Yeah.
you gotta keep your phone off.
Yeah.
I don't know why you don't do that. I'm the worst at that. Let's see. Okay. What were you saying?
So he's been able to make all of his cuisine very frugal. So even though he's buying, like, he'll buy lamb that's organic, pasture-raised lamb, and it's maybe $10 or $15 a pound. So he'll spend $35 on a couple pounds of lamb. But per serving, so he uses meat as a flavor element more than as a main course. So, and he's good because lamb has a pretty potent flavor.
Yeah, it does.
So a little bit goes a long way. And that's how he treats every one of his ingredients. So when you've got something bulky like rice or beans that's cheap and organic and good, that's the majority of what he is. Squashes, different things like that, potatoes, sweet potatoes, daikon radish, beets, stuff like that. So even though it is more expensive, when you eat off of his cuisine, it's actually cheaper than eating fiat food.
Can we trust, though, the Whole Foods
Not
of the
100%.
world? Where can you go to get those ingredients where you can know for sure that you're actually getting good ingredients?
It's like you said earlier today. We're still stuck in faith because the world has become so specialized. People can make a claim, and sure, you can check that claim, and there's even laws now, which is one of the reasons why you can trust the organic label in the United States more than in most places, because there's enough laws that if you catch somebody falsely claiming organic, you can sue the shit out of them. So it's profitable to go after those people that are misrepresenting how they're producing their food. So that keeps people a little more honest, not to promote our legal system or anything. But ultimately, so Cheff had one of his students from Australia, who's originally from Kenya. Jenga is his last name. But he spent Christmas and this holiday season over in Kenya on one of Cheff's farms. And they were able to feed him. So his whole trip over there, 2 or 3 weeks, spent in Kenya. I think he started off in Nairobi, but they got food from his different farms. So he never ate a bite of food, of fiat food, which is a lot of what they serve in Kenya. They want to be just like the Americans, which is horrible.
Yeah, doesn't everybody?
They're ashamed to be black. They're ashamed to be Kenyans. It's just the cultural deletion that happened when the British came and wiped out their culture. It's horrible. So now you've got these people that they're looking at the worst parts of America, the worst parts of England, the worst parts of the first world, and they're trying to copy and replicate that. Oh, tax system. Let's,
Yeah, because they just barely gained their freedom.
Yeah, it was like 50 years ago.
Right?
Yeah. They did exactly the same thing as the United States. They rebelled from England. So England's been fucking the whole world. They're like, oh, we lost the United States. No big deal. We've still got most of Uganda, India. We've got pretty much the rest of the world.
You saw what we did in the Middle East. It was brilliant. Britain.
So Cheff has been able to... and my point with Jenga was that when he came and ate the stuff... So Cheff has been building some farms in Kenya for like the last 10 years. And he's going right to the bare bones, right down to the roots for organic. So his manure is from cows that haven't eaten anything but organic feed. So he's got organic poop going into the fertilizer. He's got the trees that are the sawdust from the trees that are helping with the compost. Those are trees that haven't been sprayed with anything. So he's been just super meticulous to make sure all of the elements of his supply chain are pure. So when Jenga started eating this food, he goes, oh my hell, the organic food that I've been buying in Australia is a scam because this tastes so much better. It's the same kind of stuff that I've been eating off of Chef's cuisine, but the supply chain was in Australia. When he comes to Kenya and starts eating the stuff directly from Chef's farm, he's like, this is an order of magnitude better.
I'm so excited to try his food.
Yeah.
Like, and not that the food that you've made isn't good, because I've really enjoyed the different stuff you've done,
dude.
but I am really excited when we have him come in. Like,
yeah, he really wants to cook for you.
That's gonna be. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yep. If we can have him out here for like a week, and you can really experience, a solid stretch of time eating off his cuisine, you'll see major changes. That first 3 weeks that I was eating off of his cuisine, holy crap, that I really felt it. Like, I realized that we have something with our Western diet that I didn't even realize we had, but I named it after that first 3 weeks, and I called it the fiat load. So after you eat, you have to pay. So that's gone with his food. You just eat and you feel great, like all the time.
Wow.
Like, you can eat as much of his food as you want. And usually that's the other thing, you get full on his food way fast because it's very satiating, very filling, because it's such high nutrition. Whereas with the fiat food, you eat and your body's still missing a lot of stuff that it needs.
And he coined that phrase.
Fiat food.
Fiat food, right?
Yep. We were talking to him about cryptocurrency and talking about fiat currency versus cryptocurrency. And he's like, oh, and we're eating fiat food. I'm like, dude, that's brilliant.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
That's where that came from.
Yep. Yeah, he's a genius in a lot of ways. So he's kind of a force of nature. I mean, you can't shift him from his focus. It makes him very knowledgeable, but it also makes him very specialized. You have to. Well, it's interesting because he's tied everything to food. But, this essay I had you read, which I really appreciate you going through that, that was almost 2 years ago. And so
wow.
When I wrote that, and so I was just kind of curious to see how the world has progressed. The food system has gotten worse. Our medical system has gotten worse. Insurance is worse. The service is worse. Doctors are more stressed out. Nurses are more stressed out. The service isn't any better. They sewed up my leg when I cut it open. That was nice. But that was technology from, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So we really haven't seen major improvements. I mean, what they're dealing with is... Yeah, that was me. Guess who's calling?
Who is it?
Chef.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Well, you can't answer it.
That's so funny.
No, man, it's, what were you just saying?
Just that over the last 2 years, so I'm a food junkie, and it's been tough for me to let go. I went to Iceland, and I spent about 3 weeks with them, about 18 days. And it was amazing. I lost probably 19 pounds while I was there, almost a pound a day, a little over. And we were going off of the Iceland supply chain, which is scarce. They ship in almost all their food because they can't grow shit up there. But that was the first time I was just with him the whole time when we were eating together. So things have gotten worse for me because I was in better shape after Iceland. Now it's been about a year since Iceland, a little over a year, and I've slipped. I've gone back to my Mexican food, the delicious pizzas and stuff, delicious enchiladas. It's hard for me to think that the whole world, we really are food junkies. And what that means, like, imagine a bunch of heroin addicts. I just saw a little video clip of people, this guy was going past a bunch of homeless people. They're just drugged out to the max. They're leaning over, like they're just bent over in these crazy positions and just stuck there. And in a lot of ways, that's how we are with our food. And we want food to be a solved problem. We want the abundance of food that's here. We don't want starvation to be an issue. So mass production is what we've been sold as the cure. That's what allowed humanity to go from, a few million to several billion today, was all the industrialization and that sort of stuff. But what it's done is we've all become addicted. Like I was at Sam's Club the other day, and this mom had a baby that was maybe a year old, barely a year old, could barely hold themselves up in the cart. She had him sitting in the cart, and the baby was crying, and she took an ice cream cone and shoved it in its mouth to calm it down. So here this kid is, barely a year old maybe, getting sugar, ice cream.
Well, I mean, but that's what I'm talking about. It's a much bigger issue and bigger problem than I think he even realizes, because he sees it from his perspective and his passion. But I look at it from a broader stroke, and it's all over the place. Because like I said, from our very earliest understanding, what do we get on our first birthday?
Cake.
A big, huge freaking cake, and ice cream, and what do we do for Christmas? What do we do for Halloween? What do we do for Easter? It all revolves around the shit. All of it does.
And then you've got phrases like junk food and pick your poison. You go to get some alcohol, pick your poison. So we're blatantly admitting that this stuff is either junk or it's actually toxic. And we've normalized it, like, oh, if you want to party, you have to be willing to sacrifice your health so that you can have this amazing mental state.
And it does trickle down to everything. The mental health thing that you brought up in the essay, and it does affect us in more ways than I don't think anyone imagines, because all of it's interconnected. We need all of these aspects and functions to get to a better place all the way around, because it's a ripple effect. Mm-hmm. If you eat better, you're going to feel better. And if you feel better, you're going to be more active. And you're more active, you're going to become stronger. And if you're stronger, your mental, it all connects. It all connects. And it's a huge war he's waging.
Well, one fun story he told me when I think it was our first class, he said that in 1890, the Christian missionaries showed up in Kenya, and that was the beginning of colonialism. And first it was nice and friendly, and then it all turned to shit. It's like, what's the music, like death metal or whatever? It starts off like some classical stuff, then right.
Yeah.
That's how the Kenyan Christian missionaries were. They come from England, they're like, la 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 la. So one of the things they discovered is that nobody in Kenya, none of these Africans, had dental problems. And they would challenge the new guys, the new missionaries that would come. They'd say, hey, I'll bet you, whatever amount of money, that you can't find I'll give you money if you can find a Kenyan with a cavity. They couldn't do it. So 1890. So a few interesting lessons from that. I didn't know that the dental practice was so well established globally in 1890. Like, these guys had dentists. These missionaries had been to the dentist, so they'd had cavities drilled or whatever. So the processing of our food, the fiatization of our food, had started. Cheff says it's been about 200 years, but and then you'll hear stories like Tongans. I've heard stories about Tongans that have amazing teeth, and the explanation for that I've always heard is, oh, well, they just have really good genes. You know, they've got super teeth genes.
Well, and there's a lot to do that. I mean, you've seen the Brits.
Well, so what's interesting, though, is as the culture adopts the global food system, their teeth suddenly decay. So Kenyans now are just in the same boat as the rest of the world as far as needing dentists, because they're eating all the sugar, they're eating all the processed foods and crap. Whereas the people that are eating the indigenous lifestyle, the indigenous food, they never have to worry about dental issues. And I think of myself, so I'm dealing with some cavity issues right now. So when I was probably by the time I was 15, I had every one of my molars drilled as a kid and filled up with the silver dental fillings. So here I am at age 53, and my fillings are, 40 years old. I don't know what the warranty is on those fillings.
Yeah.
But I had a tooth fall apart, and man, the lifestyle impact, like, it's wiped out weeks of work. And of course my mental state being in pain. And then you call the dentist and it's like a month or two before you can get in. So,
well, and that's another point. And I know we don't want to get into all of that, but I mean, everything that and when I say the establishment has done, after COVID happened, customer service went down the drain. Like, no one cares about anything anymore. It doesn't matter. It's crazy. And I've seen it now with the medical field. Mm-hmm. It is so unstabilized now.
Well, and I have a friend who manages a call center, and she'll set up 5 or 6 interviews for new hires. One of them might show up.
Yeah.
And this is after they have the job.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're hired. Why don't you show up for training? They don't show up.
No, I think, I think we're headed to a real bad place, but and that's what I mean. It on the grand scheme of things, it's very daunting, because people are like, man, I'd really love to eat better, but my house is on fire. Or, it's like,
yeah. No, it's it's interesting too, the balance that's going on, because you've got some things that are so horrible, and then you've got fixes that come along, like Elon's Optimus Prime robot. So who knows? Within 2 or 3 years, I think there was an interview with him just recently where he predicted within just a few years, like 3 years, there'd be an Optimus, like it'll be bigger than Tesla. I mean, it's part of Tesla, but it'll be bigger than the cars. There'll be more Optimus robots out there than their cars. So think of the labor problems that Japan's having, that my friend who's doing the call center. I mean, more and more stuff now can be done by AI. And then you've got now a physical robot that can do things physically with AI. So imagine construction.
No, scarcity has gone way up.
So while people are losing their shit and losing their adulthood, losing their minds, technology is bolstering it up. But it's all fiat, dude. It's not in a healthy way. As much as I can't wait for Optimus to be here, and I'd put those to work, I would much rather see a world of healthy humans that we didn't need it.
No, and I don't know and look, this is because I don't know anything about anything, but technology isn't going to be the lifeboat that's going to hold up everything.
No, it just pushes the game to a higher level.
Right.
But the game is still the same, and it is a slave master game. That's why I wrote that article, because I just, again, like with the fixed food system, I didn't want food to be an unsolved problem when I grew up. I wanted to believe the story. Oh, look at this harvester. One guy driving this harvester can feed thousands of people. Oh, that's amazing. I don't have to be a farmer. I don't have to weed the garden. My mom and dad can go to hell when they tell me to weed the garden. That was great. But at the same time, what was I going to say? I lost it. It's gone.
It'll come back.
Maybe.
You're talking about food, farming,
and
how you were told that one farmer can feed the entire world, and you were like, well,
it was another fixed problem that turns out it's not that fixed. But
I see what you're saying. I see where you're going with it, and it's true in all facets. I think that's what freaks me out is it's not just one or two things.
You said technology.
Yeah.
Technology is going to be the fix. No, the reason why I wrote about the slavery thing is because I wanted that to be a fixed problem too. What's his name? Abraham Lincoln solved slavery. Well, it's funny how United States centric we are. Like, this is the world. If it's not happening in the United States, it's not happening.
1,000%.
Yeah, slavery was fixed here. Okay, well, other people must have done something about slavery, but who knows? Who cares? It's not the United States. But the truth is that slavery never did go away because...
No, it just got changed. It got morphed.
When you can control another person, when you got them by the balls, that's something that's tough to let go.
Yeah.
We can't trust our neighbor to be free with their property. We can't trust them to be free with their time or anything. So we're so fear driven. Anyway, so now we've got institutions. It's not even hard for a pirate. All they have to do is plug into the existing institution. You grow up as a pirate, you want to have a free lunch at someone else's expense? Dude, the whole world's designed for you. So all you've got to do is plug into politics, plug into the utility grid, whatever aspect of that pirate treasure chest you want to glom onto, it's all there for you. So I mean, even construction, you can get the license, get the insurance, and now you're officially good. Doesn't matter if you're good at your job,
right?
But if you've got that license and that insurance, and they give you the stamp of approval, then you're in the book.
Yeah.
People call you, and you can charge a crap ton of money because nobody else is doing what you do.
Yep.
So so slavery, I wanted that to be a solved problem. Then I find, it's just gone incremental. Because which one of us today can earn $100 and they own that $100? And it's theirs. And if they spend it, they don't have to pay anybody else in between. Like if you go buy a candy bar, you don't have to pay 10% to anybody else or 5% tax. So there's nobody is free to earn or spend their money 100%.
Well, and then the tax redundancy. You know what I mean? You're paying property tax every year.
Yeah.
And then you're paying property tax on the vehicle that sits on the property that you're paying property tax on. It's just never ending.
Yeah, so you can never own the big things.
No.
They just become...
they give you the illusion of ownership.
It reminds me of when I was in New England and I watched a family, what's their names? Palmer family. They had a maple syrup farm. And they would talk about the perfect time of year when it was warm enough in the spring that it would get above freezing, and then cold enough that it would freeze at night, and that would form a pumping action inside the tree. And they could tap the tree, and then they had all these lines, these little PVC or plastic lines running to this big barrel. And the smell of that maple syrup cooking down, that was some of the best stuff I've ever smelled. But that's what it reminds me of. When you buy a house or land or a vehicle or boat, that kind of thing, it's like a tap into your tree. They're just like, we're just gonna.
It's fiat economics.
Yeah, I like it. I like what you did there.
That's exactly true. It's just, it's what it is. And though, Though it is daunting, I mean, it is cool in the fact that it is something that you have more control over. Whereas, you know, I for the most part can't control where I get my power or where I get my natural gas, you know, but I can control for the most part what I put in my body. It's going to take a conscious effort, but
That's a good point. I think that's probably why Cheff focuses just on that, because
yeah,
one of the things he teaches is that we've lost the concept of farming. We've lost the power of sustainability. Like, you know, you plant a seed and you get 200 more. You know, you plant a plant a little grain of rice and you get 200-fold return on investment. So that farming mentality, we've lost that. So if there's not someone who's offering you a hamburger, you have no idea where to get the wheat or the vegetables or the meat. You know, the components of that hamburger, you couldn't put it together. And he does something simple like just have a compost pile and grow herbs. So he's awesome at spicing. That's why I say if he comes out here and cooks for you, it's going to be on a way different level, because I can follow some of his basic instructions and come up with a plate of food. But the way that he flavors everything and just the way that he perfectly cooks everything, man, it's a different experience. It's so good.
oh, I'm so excited for that. I really am. And we are going to get him out here.
Yep.
So I think actually sooner rather than later.
Yeah, he just needs a few more students. It's interesting. He came from a culture where they had no written. It was mostly an oral tradition that you pass on information. That was their indigenous program. So there's not a whole lot written in Kikuyu, which is his native language, because it didn't really exist as a written language I don't think for more than like 100 years, maybe 50 years. Just hasn't. They just didn't have that. So it's been interesting helping him as he's now he can give a lecture, he can teach classes, and he can cook like a wild man. But what I'm helping him work out, and he's got a couple other students that are helping him as well, is to put together a curriculum. And he needs a good 100 students, and man, he would treat them well. They would have a life-changing experience. So we'll get him a few students, and then once he's got some alumni that can say, "Oh shit, you know, I've had the Kabui experience." Like my sister took her daughter down to Mexico and had her stomach cut out, 80% of her stomach cut out. So that forces her to eat a 10th or a 20th of what she was eating before. And that was the solution. And there's lots of people that do that. They paid like $6,000 to do that.
Well, the other problem, and I don't have the statistical information to back this up, but it makes sense to me. Like, we've been doing it for so long, generation after generation after generation. I think what's happened now on a molecular level is we've passed those genes on. And that's why you see people that even if they ate good you would still find people that are obese, because genetically we're getting to the point where we don't know how to process things anymore.
I don't think so.
Well, then what about the people that do eat good that are still obese?
There are very, very few people that eat good.
We're going to find that out.
Yeah.
If you
find a fat person that's eating organic, I'd be surprised.
Okay.
That would be interesting, because what I've found with Chef's cuisine, everybody that's eaten his food, they tend to head towards their target BMI, their body mass, their healthy body mass index.
So you could say you'd have a better ROI if you had a better BMI.
I like what you did there. Well, so think about this. If you're eating food that is low in nutrition, then obesity is the natural consequence. But if you're eating food that is high in nutrition, you're going to want less of it, and your body's going to be satiated. And it won't matter if you eat. So your body has a natural weight management system. And we've overwhelmed that with our with our diet. So once you go back to a healthy human diet, it's funny. I remember listening to 5 different TED Talks because I was really curious before I met Cheff. What is the ideal human diet? Because I'd heard about paleo, I've heard about keto, and lots of different. This is exactly what humans need to eat. And I'm like, how could we have forgotten how to eat? That's ridiculous. So I watched 5 different TED Talks, and they all had a different opinion about what the perfect human diet was. I'm like, what the F? This is stupid. But Chef's like, yeah, we never lost it. At least there are pockets where we've never lost it.
Right. And we could get it back, I guess, is the most important thing,
so
right?
I think he's got it, and I think you'd be surprised at how quickly health can be restored. Good health, good weight can be restored by eating well. That's kind of his thesis. But, you could be right, too. It could be that we've walked away too far. And
No. I don't think... I'm just saying, like, genetically, we've almost trained our bodies how to process things.
Well, what we've definitely done is activated different taste buds.
Right.
So, like Mudoni, she'll chow down on a white sweet potato, and that's her lunch and her dessert sometimes. And it's a night. I've had a sweet potato, but I've never had it like I've had Cheerios.
Right.
And I've realized that I've trained my taste buds over 50 years.
Exactly.
To want a specific supply chain.
Yeah.
So you actually have to change your palate and your microbiome. And you have to reactivate those dormant taste buds. Dude, you're awesome. Thank you for struggling through that. I know that was a pain.
It was awesome. I always love reading your stuff. I do. I just don't like reading it for the first time because I get hung up, and I've got this tiny little screen, and next time we're going to do it a little differently. But no, I do appreciate you sharing that, and obviously, you're going to be back on again, and we're going to get Cheff down here. We're going to make that work. Hopefully you'll be a part of that podcast as well, because it'd be great having both of you. That's going to be a unique situation for me, because I'm just going to be able to sit back and shut up and let you guys go. But I do believe it's important, 1,000%. And even though I've never done it to the extent he has, there have been times in my life that I've tried to do better with my intake, and I have noticed a difference with it. Yeah. And I think it's a much bigger part than they let on, and that's just one of the things. Call it a conspiracy or whatever, but they don't want us to figure those things out. No, I've noticed that here in Kansas. The government's paying farmers not to grow. Yep. And it's because they want the control, and they want the monopoly on what we eat, what we think, what we see, what we do, and
how we smell.
Everything that they do pushes forward that agenda. Any time we have a catastrophe or anything like that, all they're asking for is more freedom. So compliance. We just need your compliance. Shout out to me. Love them. If you're still listening, sure appreciate it. Love you guys. You're the audience that is the best of the rest. I don't care what anyone says about you. And you've been listening to the Just Josh and You podcast here with Don Thornton. And we're going to go ahead and sign off and say goodbye. And we'll catch you on the flip side. Woo. And peace be unto you.
Peace.